I have not forgotten to continue the team history videos. I obviously won't get them done before we go to Vegas. I'm not taking this board with us to Vegas, so I will get probably a couple more done before we leave. I wanted to get New Jersey done tonight, and I'm over halfway through the league, so bonus to that. The New Jersey Devils, of course, started their history as the Kansas City Scouts. They then became the Colorado Rockies, and then the New Jersey Devils. I've opted to allow all three organizations to coexist on the board, and I've color coded it. The stuff in purple was done by or players from Kansas City, Colorado, and in red is New Jersey Devils because I figured red and all, right? So when you look at this team and you look at their all-time leading scorers, the first thing that stands out is there's virtually nobody who played for the Rockies and nobody that played for the Kansas City Scouts in their top 10. Patrick Elias, 408 goals, 617 assists, 1,025 points. Easily the biggest star player that the New Jersey Devils have had at forward and for the longest. I've seen some conversations over the last few days about Marty Brodeur and the teams that he played with. And if anybody thinks that the New Jersey Devils weren't really good during Brodeur's time, they didn't watch him. John McClain was part of that. 347 goals, 354 assists, 701 points. Kirk Muller, 185 goals, 335 assists, 520 points. Travis Zajac, 186 goals, 321 assists, 507 points. Scott Gomez, 121 goals, 361 assists, 484 points. Scott Niedermayer, one of the best defensemen I've ever seen, 112 goals, 364 assists, 476 points. Bobby Holik, 202 goals, 270 assists, 472 points. Aaron Broughton, 162 goals, 307 assists, 469 points. Scott Stevens, 93 goals, 337 assists, 430 points. Also one of the best players I've ever seen. Definitely with defensemen. Zach Parise, 194 goals, 216 assists, 410 points. Now, when we get past this and we get to the wins list, that's where it's ridiculous. Marty Brodeur, 688 wins, if not for a few games he played at the end of his career in St. Louis when he was like, I can still play, and New Jersey's like, we've got your replacement. He should have played his entire career in New Jersey. Chris Drury, 118 wins. Corey Schneider, 112. Glenn Resch, known as Chico, 67 wins, and Keith Kincaid with 64. Of course, Corey Schneider could very well pass Chris Drury for second place. He will never pass Marty Brodeur. We know this. Coaching wins, Jacques Lemaire, 276. It's going to be a long time before we see anybody anywhere near that. John Hines, 141. Peter DeBoer, 114. Doug Carpenter, 100. Brent Sutter, 97. And the interesting thing, of course, is Larry Robinson, who was part of a big Stanley Cup win there, not on the boards. And Pat Burns, not on the board either. So they've gone through a lot of coaches, the New Jersey Devils. But again, you look at this list, it's all New Jersey. And it's because the Colorado Rockies and the Kansas City Scouts were very inept. In terms of the entire organization's time, in 23 out of 44 seasons, they've been in the playoffs. They've got 3 Stanley Cups, 95, 2000, 2003. They came in an expansion team 1974 as the Kansas City Scouts. They moved to Denver in 1976 and moved to New Jersey in 1982. And there were various rumors during their early time in New Jersey that it wasn't going to work out there and they might have to move again. But they didn't. Their best season prior to being a New Jersey Devils franchise, they had 59 points. That's ridiculously bad, and that's part of the reason why they didn't draw at all in Colorado or in Kansas City. This team was just miserable. In Kansas City, there was other logistical reasons as well. Their first winning season, not just playoffs. Well, playoffs they made before that because there were 16 out of 21 teams made the playoffs. But their first winning season, where they had more wins than losses, is 1987-88. They committed the league in 1974. This is why Wayne Gretzky referred to them as a Mickey Mouse organization after a particularly embarrassing loss they took against the Oilers. And he was right. He was absolutely right that this was a Mickey Mouse team for a very long time. And then it changed. Your captain's history, and again, in purple, means Kansas City and Colorado. Simon Nollet, 1974 to 77. Guy Charon, 1976. Wolf Paymont, 1977 to 79. Gary Croteau, 1979-80. Mike Christie, 1980. Rene Robert, 1980 to 81. Lanny McDonald, 1981. And Rob Ramage, 1981 to 1982. So a lot of different captains for some pretty bad teams. Then we become the New Jersey Devils. Don Lever, 1982 to 84. Mel Bridgman, 1984 to 87. Kirk Muller, 1987 to 91. Bruce Driver, 1991 to 1992. And then Scott Stevens takes the C and keeps it for a long time, 1992 to 2004. Coming out of the lockout, Patrick Eliash, captain, 2006-2007. Jamie Langenbrunner, 2007 to 2011. Zach Parise, 2011 to 2012. Bryce Salvador, 2013 to 2015, and Andy Green has been captain since 2015 for this team, right up until while I'm recording this, which is just before the 2019-2020 season. So they've had a more stable captaincy than they had prior to being in New Jersey, and that's because they're a more successful franchise. Top 10 draft picks, pretty long list, but they did have a nice long run where they weren't in the top 10. Barry Deans drafted second overall in 1975. Barry Beck's drafted number 2 in 1977. 1978, Mike Gillis is drafted at number 5. Yes, that Mike Gillis. Number 1 overall in 1979 is Rob Ramage. Number 5 in 1981 is Joe Sorella. 1982, drafting 8th, they get Rocky Trottier. 1983, drafting 6th, they get John McClain. 1984, drafting 2nd, they get Kirk Muller. 1985, drafting 3rd, Craig Wolanin. 1986, drafting 3rd, Neil Brady. 1987, they get this one right at 2nd, Brendan Shanahan. The number 2 draft picks, a little more impressive than the number 3 draft picks in that run. 1989, they draft 5th, they get Bill Guerin. 1991, drafting 3rd, they get Scott Niedermayer. 1996, drafting 10th, Lance Ward. 2011, drafting 4th, they get Adam Larson. 2015, drafting 6th, they get Pavel Zacha. 2017, drafting 1st, Nico Hischier. And in the draft we just had, they drafted 1st again, and they got Jack Hughes. So New Jersey, pretty well, a solid record overall when it comes to drafting early. There's a little bit of a Hall of Famer in that. And now we'll get into the draft history, or trade history, I should say. Notable trades. Again, if it's in purple, it's prior to them being the New Jersey Devils. December 9th, 1975, the Kansas City Scouts get Henry Boucha, and Minnesota gets 1978 second, which becomes Steve Kristoff. Steve Kristoff, good player for the Minnesota North Stars for a while. I'll give that as a win for the Minnesota North Stars. September 13th, 1976, Colorado. So now we're in Colorado already. Ron Andruff, Sean Shanahan, and a 1981st, which becomes the number 19 draft pick, Paul Gagne, or Paul Gagne, I should say. It was Gagne. And Montreal gets the 1981 number 1 draft pick, which becomes Doug Wickenheiser. Montreal had the choice about whether or not to switch draft picks, and when Montreal's drafting 19th and Colorado's drafting 1st, of course they're going to say, yeah, we'll go ahead and switch those. November 2nd, 1979, Colorado gets Lucien Dablois, Pat Hickey, Mike McEwen, Dean Turner, and Bob Crawford. The Rangers get Barry Beck. Yes, Barry Beck, who they had drafted number 2 in 1979, or 77. He's already gone in 79 because there's no patience with this organization. That's part of the problem. December 29th, 1979, Colorado gets Lanny McDonald and Joel Quenneville from Toronto for Pat Hickey and Wolf Paymont. Huge win for the Colorado Rockies in this one. And of course, this was a matter of Toronto just wanted to be rid of Lanny McDonald because they couldn't trade Darryl Sittler. March 10th, 1981, Colorado acquires Glenn, Chico Resch, and Steve Tambellini. The New York Islanders get Yari Karela and Mike McEwen. And again, I'll go ahead and say Colorado wins that trade. Tambellini was good during his career. And Chico Resch, he was sometimes the only good player they had on the ice. July 21st, 1981, Colorado gets the 1982 first-round pick, which they use on Ken Danico. They get a 10th round draft pick as well on Dwight Foster. Boston gets the 1982 number 1 overall draft pick, Gord Kluzak, and a second. So that's twice now that the Rockies have traded the number 1 draft pick. So if you're looking for the California Seals up here, very similar. Seals is different. But yeah, this was a team that was willing to give up number 1 draft picks too. October 1st, 1981, Colorado gets Dave Cameron and Bob Lorimer. the New York Islanders get a 1983 first-round pick, which becomes Pat LaFontaine. So again, it's an example of a team that's at the bottom trading away a number 1 draft pick they really should have held on to. June 9th, 1982, the Colorado Rockies get a 1982 first-round pick, which they used to get Rocky Trottier, a 1983 first-round pick, which they used to draft John McClain, and St. Louis gets Rob Ramage. So that's a trade that definitely favors the Rockies. But these guys won't be members of the Rockies. They're going to be members of the Devils. June 19th, 1984, the New Jersey Devils acquired Don Dietrich, Rich Preston, a 1985 second, which becomes Eric Weinrich. Going the other way, Chicago gets Bob McMillan and a 1985 fifth. Again, that favors the Devils. September 19th, 1985, New Jersey gets Mark Johnson. St. Louis gets Sean Evans and a 1986 fifth-round draft pick. That's a trade that I'm going to go ahead and say New Jersey wins because Johnson went on to have some pretty good seasons for the Devils. He was one of my favorite players. And he didn't stick around for very long, but he put up some good numbers while he was there. June 13th, 1987, New Jersey acquires David Maley from Montreal for a third-round pick in the 1987 draft that Montreal uses to draft Matthew Schneider. So a bit of a setback there for the New Jersey Devils. September 15th, 1987, the New Jersey Devils get Patrick Sundstrom, a 1988 second and a fourth. Vancouver gets Greg Adams, Kirk McLean, and a 1988 second-round draft pick. That is a solid win for Vancouver. That being said, at that time, New Jersey's not exactly shallow when it comes to goaltenders. So they felt that they had extra to spare, and Kirk McLean was extra, and Vancouver could certainly use a goaltender at the time. June 17th, 1989, New Jersey acquires Sylvain Turgeon. Hartford gets Pat Verbeek. That's a win for Hartford, absolutely. So Turgeon becomes a member of the Devils. Then October 16th, 1989, New Jersey gets a first-round pick from Toronto for Tom Curvers. That first-round pick becomes Scott Niedermayer. This is why when I see people saying, it's just a first, it's fine. It's never, no, just no. I've seen too many cases where that first-round pick becomes a pretty darn good player, and we're looking back in history videos like this and saying, what were they thinking? And it's short-term. Tom Curvers, all offense, not a lot on the defensive side, and it was Toronto aiming for a home run, and they missed. June 16th, 1990, the New Jersey Devils acquire a 1990 first-round draft pick, which becomes Marty Brodeur, and 2 second-round picks. Calgary acquires a 1990 first-round pick that becomes Trevor Kidd and a second. Now, the sad thing about this is Brodeur's drafted after Kidd. So Calgary trades up to draft Trevor Kidd. New Jersey trades down to draft Marty Brodeur. If you just have Calgary draft Marty Brodeur, who knows how things might have turned out. September 4th, 1990, New Jersey's not done ripping people off. Claude Lemieux is acquired from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for Sylvain Turgeon. So we can say they lose that trade with Hartford where they get Turgeon, but they win the trade where they get rid of Turgeon. So it kind of works out. Because if you look at it as Claude Lemieux for Pat Verbeek, that's not a bad deal. Grit for grit right there. August 28th, 1992, New Jersey acquires Bobby Holik and a 1993 second, which becomes Jay Pandolfo. Hartford acquires Sean Burke and Eric Weinrich. Now, Sean Burke was fantastic for Hartford, was the only reason that Hartford was anywhere near respectable in some of those seasons. But Holik is a key guy for the New Jersey Devils going forward. And Pandolfo, a pretty decent, fourth-line guy for a New Jersey Devils team that plays a very solid defensive style. February 13th, 1993, the New Jersey Devils acquire Bernie Nichols from Edmonton for Zdeno Seeger and Kevin Todd, showing just how much the stock had dropped for Bernie Nichols at the time. February 27th, 1995, New Jersey acquires Neil Broughton. Dallas gets Corey Millen in exchange, which Broughton's part of a Stanley Cup winner that year for New Jersey. So I was happy for Broughton, absolutely. I had wished that he would win that Stanley Cup in '91 with the Minnesota North Stars, but that didn't happen. October 3rd, 1995, the New Jersey Devils acquire Steve Thomas. The Islanders acquire Claude Lemieux. They would then take Claude Lemieux and ship him out to Colorado in exchange for Wendell Clark. I'll go ahead and say that's a loss for New Jersey, but this was a dispute over money, and Lemieux wanted more, and New Jersey said no. Lou Lamoriello had no problem just shipping you out. You want what? Yeah, no, you're gone. February 25th, 1997, New Jersey gets Dave Ellett, Doug Gilmour, and a 1998 fourth round draft pick. Toronto gets Jason Smith, Steve Sullivan, and Alan McCauley. And I remember at the time there was a lot of complaining that that wasn't enough that they got back. But Doug Gilmour had already started to kind of decline, and he would never get back to what he was in the early to mid 90s. But at the same time, did Toronto get enough back? I don't know. January 4th, 1998, New Jersey Devils acquire Jason Arnott, Brian Muir from Edmonton for Bill Guerin and Valeri Zelepukin. I'll go with 50-50 on this one. Although Jason Arnott, the older he got, the better he got. So Arnott was one of those guys that he just kept getting better. So when you expected, all right, he's going to drop off now, or he'd go to a team and you go, oh, well, he's not going to play very well there. And then he'd play even better. June, I should say, 27, 1998. The New Jersey Devils get a first in that draft, which is Scott Gomez. Dallas gets 2 1998 second-round draft picks, which didn't end up being Scott Gomez at all. And on the same day, New Jersey gets a third-round draft pick in the 1998 draft, which they used for Brian Giunta. The Oilers get a fourth, a fifth, and the rights to Frederick Lundqvist. So I'm going to go ahead and give that trade to New Jersey Devils as well. November 3rd, 1999, the New Jersey Devils bring back Claude Lemieux. They get a 2000 first and second from Colorado. Colorado gets Brian Ralston and a 2000 first round draft pick. So they make up for their mistake by bringing back Lemieux. It costs them Brian Ralston, but Claude Lemieux comes back and they do win a Stanley Cup after that. March 4th, 2000. This was a trade made to try to bolster their scoring going into the playoffs. Alexander McGillney's added from the Canucks. Brendan Morrison and Dennis Peterson go the other way. So Morrison would be a first-line center for the Vancouver Canucks, but McGillney was a key guy for them in those playoffs as well. No longer a premier goal scorer, but still he scored some really decent moments. March 19th, 2002, Jamie Langenbrunner and Joe Neuendijk are sent to the New Jersey Devils. Dallas gets Jason Arnott, Randy McKay, and a 2002 first. I'm going to go ahead and say that was a pretty good deal for New Jersey as they would win a Stanley Cup again in 2003. June 21st, 2003, right off the heels of that Stanley Cup, the New Jersey Devils get a first-round draft pick that year, which becomes Zach Parise. Edmonton gets a 2003 first and second, neither of whom end up becoming Zach Parise level. June 26, 2004, New Jersey gets a 2004 first-round draft pick, which becomes Travis Zajac. Dallas gets a 2004 first and third. Neither of them become as good as Travis Zajac. February 4th, 2010, the New Jersey Devils acquire Ilya Kovalchuk, Anssi Salmela, and a 2010 second-round pick that becomes John Merrill. Going the other way, the Atlanta Thrashers get nowhere near enough. Nicholas Bergfors, Patrice Cormier, Johnny Oduya, a 2010 first, which becomes Kevin Hayes, so that doesn't end up being an Atlanta pick, and a second. So, they get a first out of it, but I remember at the time everybody said New Jersey's ripping off Atlanta, and looking back all these years later, and yeah, New Jersey ripped off Atlanta. June 30th, 2013, the New Jersey Devils get Corey Schneider. The Vancouver Canucks get a first-round draft pick in that draft. I remember a lot of booing among Canuck fans on that one. Bo Horvat ended up being that draft pick. I'll go ahead and say that's a win for the Vancouver Canucks. In the beginning, it was one of those ones we looked at and said, I don't know, this is crazy. We're trading Schneider. We should be keeping Luongo, but that's more for the Canucks history video. June 29th, 2016, New Jersey acquires Taylor Hall. Edmonton acquires Adam Larson, and the internet collectively loses its mind at this news. It was insane. This was not the return that we thought would be in the cards when it comes to trading Taylor Hall. So that's a win for the New Jersey Devils. And a trade that just occurred in June of this year, June 22nd, 2019. New Jersey acquires PK Subban. In exchange for taking that $9 million a year cap hit, they didn't have to give up nearly as much as they would have otherwise. Steven Santini, Jeremy Davies, a 2019 second, and a 2020 second are all that it costs to get him out of Nashville. So we'll see how well that works out for them. But in general, New Jersey does much better as New Jersey than they ever did as the Rockies or than they did as the Kansas City Scouts. And could they get back to the playoffs this year? They could, but that remains to be seen, and I'm not doing a preview here. I'm doing a history of the team video. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, there you go. Just on one board, statistical history of the New Jersey Devils franchise, including Kansas City and Colorado. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.